Hello everyone, welcome to our fourth meeting, I think, already. Yeah, great to see so many new faces here. It's always good. And I just want to say thanks again to our regular sponsor, now, this time as well as providing food as always. It's up in the little event space in the Vision Building, which is very nice. We're doing brilliant some pizzas, and we've been trying out all sorts of different formats and venues and when to do food and all sorts. So we're going to try and do some sort of survey next month and kind of gather up everyone's thoughts and all the things we've done and figure out what kind of consistent format for the year. Okay, so this month we have Paul Dragoonis here. So Paul was a software consultant from Glasgow, long-time member of the PHP community, contributes a lot to PHP internal projects, and if you're not familiar with any of it, who here has used PHP.net website? Everyone? Maybe? Okay. If you noticed fairly recently, there was a redesign called behind that. Also maintains and participates in PHP Fig, which is the framework group, and has just sort of reignited PSR 6, is that right?
It finished 2 days ago.
Was it finished already?
It's ready for vote. It was ready for vote 2 days ago.
Okay, cool.
So we're launching that.
Which type working PHP Fig kind of ties nicely and is quite connected to the PPI Framework, which follows the developer, and he's going to speak about it tonight. So let's give a warm welcome to Paul.
So, thanks for coming. But show of hands, who is here as a PHP developer, as in writes PHP on actively, so I get a good gauge. Okay, and if you're not, what are you guys doing differently? Using Java? What technologies are you using?
Most of us, the students, we've been using Java in the first year, and second year using C, C++, different basic things. HTML and CSS.
Okay, so if you're not already using PHP, then there's a lot of crossover between languages, and there's a lot of similar concepts that you see today that are very relatable to developing software in different technologies or different languages, right? In terms of frameworks, right? The PHP guys, what frameworks are you using? Shout out any others that you're using, apart from Symfony? Zend framework, Symfony. Any others? Largo, right, good. You, Chris? So you're using Symfony. So who's using Symfony? Has used Symfony, is using Symfony? Right, it's quite a lot. What about Zend? A little bit about Laravel. Okay, any other frameworks I've not covered? Okay, good enough. What about the Java guys? What any frameworks you're using in Java? Sprite? Yeah. So you guys using Spring Framework? Okay. Right, so frameworks, right? Just got an intro. Ian very briefly introduced me, but I'm a software consultant from Scotland. This talk was from when I was in Ukraine a month ago. So that's why I say from Scotland, because obviously, but yeah, from Glasgow. From the PHP Fig group. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a standards body for PHP. Pretty standards for the community, for the world. And I spent years contributing to PHP core and the PHP extensions. And I was also one of the guys involved in the modernization of the PHP.net website, which was very old. We modernized it a few years ago, so it took us about 2 years to do that project. It's quite a big project. So yeah, you've likely seen something that we're working on. The developer PPI, not the only developer, there's a co-lead developer, his name is Vitor from Portugal. He's done a significant amount of contributions to the project as well, so definitely giving him a shout out for that. Been using PHP, not only PHP, but I've started using it in 2001, so we're coming 14 years now. So I've been using PHP to solve my problems and seeing frameworks come, frameworks go. Over time, seen patterns emerging in the problems and the challenges that people are facing when they're using frameworks. Typically what happens is a framework comes up, people get really frustrated with it, or there's some problems with it. Somebody creates a new framework which tries to solve that problem, and then eventually there's problems with that framework, and it just happens over and over and over. So for me, for myself, I built myself a technology that allowed me to not have to change my frameworks every time a new framework comes out. Or if there's a problem with the framework, or I want to change the framework, or start using new ones, or I'm inheriting code from elsewhere, I don't just want to change my framework to another framework, right? I want to build something that allows me to be in control, a centralized area, that allows me to actually pivot and change as my product or the ecosystem matures, which it has been doing, right? That's kind of one of the reasons why I started PPI for myself. If you guys want to take pictures or get in touch, you can tweet me there, and you can email me as well when I have any questions as well. So, what is the message of PPI? PPI's message is that frameworks are powerful. We know that, we use them for that reason, right? They do a lot of heavy lifting for us, but they do come at a cost, right? It's understanding the cost and how PPI will help you circumvent and work around those costs. This is the important part to take away. And the amount of cost is determined by how you use the frameworks and how you depend on them. That's the key part. Frameworks are powerful, but the famous quote, great power comes great responsibility, right? PPI helps you with the responsibility by putting you in a position where you're less liable or less likely to make design failures because of the design failures of the following frameworks, right? And today, we're going to show you how to not just unleash the power of one framework, but many at the same time, when it makes sense for you and your business and your products. And not from a technical perspective, this has a lot of positive business impacts as well. So that will benefit your company, or your project, or non-programmers that are around you, right? So let's talk about costs, right? The costs are that one of the main costs is something called vendor lock-in, right? Who's familiar with this term? Okay. Those of you who are not familiar with what vendor lock-in is, it means that you're coupled, right? It's coupling, and it means you're tightly coupled, you're tightly tied to a specific piece of technology for your thing you're building. And it's very difficult to break away from that because of the design of those frameworks and the way that you're using them. And as a result, you get tightly coupled to one framework, and it's hard to switch to a new framework. You usually have to be writing code or invest a lot of time in building the application up front so that if you do have to change, it takes less time, but it took more time in the first place to build it that way, so you've lost time and you're losing time, right? And effort. And as a result, it's difficult to move your code. You've written a code for one application, and you've got another application that's using a different framework. You can't really take your code with you, right? Because you invested it and it's coupled to that vendor, right? So that's one of the main costs. So PPI, people ask me what it is. It's not insurance, all right? Projects that did start 9 years ago, slightly different. It was an actual framework then. As of 2010, so 5 years ago, it solved the problems in a modern way, and the modern way was using interoperability, and therefore it became an engine and not a framework. All right, so it's very important to understand it's not a framework. It's not going to introduce new things to you if you're already using frameworks, right? Yeah, and about say how many years ago? 5 years ago on the TV, there's this PPI thing. I'm probably quoting on PPI. And then I look up and there's like, hey, call the PPI experts. And I'm just like, fuck. People phoning me up saying, can I get the PPI? And I'm just like, you have no idea, really. So it's nothing to do with insurance. It doesn't actually have a definition, all right? It's just a name. It's simple to understand and see. But we can have some fun with it from time to time. So we can have a quote and say PHP interoperability framework. Or you can make up what I really like. Yeah, it uses interoperability, right? Which is the idea of being able to interconnect and move between things with as little friction as possible, right? So it's not a framework, it's a framework delivery engine, right? It takes part of frameworks. Frameworks that either are monolithic or frameworks that are component-based architectures, okay? Laravel to an extent, or CodeIgniter, or older frameworks, the monolithic one or E framework are very large things. Okay, modern frameworks like Zen and Symfony, they're component based, so you can't take parts of them out. All right. What PPI does is it lets you use frameworks, but differently from the way you're using them today. It lets you use frameworks in a component-based architecture, right? Not the components of the frameworks, using the frameworks as components, right? Doesn't make sense, it will make sense more. And it will deliver whole parts of those frameworks to your application when you want it to, right? But most importantly, it will deliver them individually to the features of your app, okay? Right now we have one application, has many modules, many features, many bundles, and you're using that framework. All the features are tied to the same stack. Okay, the difference with PPI is that it splits the responsibility and the decisions to a per feature basis, right? And that's a similar model to microservices, all right? If anyone's ever familiar with that, okay? It's decoupling frameworks, right? Taking the coupling you have to your framework and by embracing it, by putting in a different design, it will allow you to decouple from the framework in a modular fashion. Okay, so module-based architecture and a component-based architecture for frameworks, and then decoupling, right? And that is how we get around the vendor lock-in, right? You can use PPI as an engine, so it's basically a script you can just call PPI boot, and just put it, you can put it inside of anything. Okay, so it's not a framework, right? You can use it like a framework. So you can say, oh, I want to start doing HTTP like an API or a website. So then it can become a framework with controllers and views and things like that if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be, right? And you can use it inside existing applications like legacy apps, right? Does anybody here have worked in a company where they have a really old legacy app and they wish they could use modern technologies in, right? Probably just everybody, right? So for me, what I do is if a customer gives me a legacy application and you have all these new codes in the community and they can't migrate because they have to migrate the whole thing over to the community, what you can use PPI is inject it inside of legacy apps. Okay, so you can have all your new fancy code. So say you have a legacy system and you want to start building a new feature, right? Or you want to upgrade one feature. With PPI, you can inject it into at the correct point, and then you can have a feature in PPI. But it's been built by using modern code and modern things like Symfony and Zen. Even if your product's 10 years old, well, within reason, we've got the version of PHP which you're bound to, but yeah, we'll leave that as is. You can inject inside things like WordPress, Drupal, CodeIgniter, anything doesn't really matter. It's a container, right? And there's things in that container like a box. You can just tell PPI what you want to happen, and PPI will tell the frameworks what to do. Okay. So if you've got WordPress code and you don't really know how to do it, you're struggling, you've got maybe some complex business rules that you don't really want to hack together or invest in, say Drupal 7 or WordPress, because it's very difficult to see unit testing. Okay, you can do unit testing and do it on your development outside of the frameworks, right? And you can inject it in these, so you get the best of both worlds. You get the benefits that the business wants of using things like WordPress and Drupal, but you don't get the negative effects from a technical perspective because you can code it outside the framework. Right? You can code it outside of the CMS or whatever, right? So scenarios that you would probably want to use PPI in, some scenarios that's working for me and other developers is, well, here's a very typical path, right? Step one, customer comes and tells you what they want, kind of tells you what they want. And then based on that, you choose the relevant toolkit, right? So they want something that's very lightweight and simple, you might use like a very small framework, or if it's a very comprehensive large thing, you might invest in something like Symfony because it's a very large and flexible system. All right, so that's fine. You've invested, you've committed to that framework, to that technology, and then you go and build it for 1 week, 1 month, maybe 1 year, right? What happens next? Customer comes round, someone comes to change their mind of what they want, right? And you're like, well, if you told me this in the first place, I would have chosen a completely different toolkit. This happened to anybody before? People have changed their mind, and you've got something that's not really like suitable, right? You can't really change. So therefore, the tool that you chose at the beginning is no longer the correct tool because the product over time has just naturally evolved. It's changed, it's matured, it's become larger and more complicated to deal with. And therefore, what the toolkit you start to set out with at the beginning is not really that simple. So you're trying to then hack around it and make it do things it's not really designed to do. Right? It's not fit for purpose, I'm trying to say. As a result, it's difficult to switch because you're locked to that vendor, right? So it's going to go through something that's low. As a result, you end up sticking with the tool because the business say, well, if it works, why fix it, right? Even if it's not the right tool, the best tool is appropriate. So you stick with it, right? And you're stuck. And then you become the legacy app. We go round, we go round, we go round, right? So, but it's not your fault because you're not psychic and you can't predict the future, right? But PPI can. How does it prepare you for it? PPI prepares you for change because it's designed for change. Its design model is an agile-based design. It's intending for you to change your mind constantly, whether it's once a day, once every week, doesn't matter, right? It's a design shift in using frameworks. Your app code belongs to you and not the framework. And at PPI lets you make framework-based decisions on a per feature basis. And that's probably the most crucial thing to understand away from this, is that the framework, at the moment you commit to frameworks on an app basis, the whole app is bound to a framework, whereas PPI lets you make decisions on each feature. So if you change your mind on what frameworks you're using on one feature, it will affect the other features. Okay? The decisions are on a per feature basis. So when things evolve and change, you can change your frameworks with them, and therefore you're in charge. So, technical stuff, alright? Choosing a framework. These are some popular characteristics that you could think of a toolkit or a framework. It consists of, we've got extensibility, code quality, ecosystem, simplicity, and architecture, right? And you try to choose something. So here's Symfony, right? This is how I see Symfony, right? It's very, the code quality is quite extensible, it's great architecture. It's not very simple, right? It's pros and cons, obviously, high learning curve, right? There's Zend, right? It's extremely extensible. It's even less simple, and it's not been strong as an ecosystem, right? Laravel, very different model. Okay, it's very simple. It's got a great ecosystem. It's not that extensible. The code quality is quite low. Okay, you see how that differs significantly, right? So on day one, if you've got a toolkit that looks like this, but and a month later or 2 months later, you need a toolkit that looks like this. It's going to be difficult to achieve that, right? This is a thing called Falcon, which is written in C for PHP, and it doesn't really have that much of an ecosystem, but it's written in C, so it's blazingly fast. So if your system needs Falcon, if you need a really fast system, like say you're like Yahoo or Facebook, and you write PHP, but you want it to like blazingly fast in C code. Falcon is an example of a framework that does what it provides, right? So now we can start comparing frameworks, right? So you see where there's slight disadvantages of using Symfony versus Zend. You want to put Laravel in there, you can see where you're missing out, right? But you can't really, and there's just loads of choices. The yellow one is coding data, right? So you've got all these different characteristics, strengths, pros and cons. You can only link it to one at a time, right? So a PPI. So when you're choosing a feature, let's look at feature A, right? Feature A is a back-end CMS, right? A feature B is a front-end website. Customers, apps, hitting that right live. So what you're doing is, although they have similar characteristics, they have different responsibilities and different users. The back end is just people logging in, making some content changes, right? The front end is traffic hitting it from search engines and whatever, right? So you have different responsibilities on a feature basis, right? So let's get this. So this is, at the moment, so I was saying cost, right? Cost is influenced by how you use and rely on frameworks. This is how, what happened is, we had about maybe 8 years ago, we had frameworks like Coding Vector, things like that. And you had controllers, and it was just a big list of controllers, right? There's no modularity, it was just one big list of everything in your app is ever going to need to do, and that's what you're getting, right? And then what happens is, as a community, we evolved, right? And we split things into modules, or bundles, or extensions, or whatever it's going to be called, right? So we decoupled the modules so you can have separate code, right? But what happens is we recoupled yourself back to the one stack. So we made a mistake then, right? We removed the coupling up here, but we did not remove the coupling down here. Whereas in PPI, the design change is the coupling is lost. So you've got framework there, this is where the coupling's not there anymore. Your modules or your features can consist of different frameworks because they don't communicate together. That's where microservices comes in. The concept of microservices is where things can communicate. They're independent things that are living separate roles in separate areas, right? So module 1, module 2, and module 3 can become be very different and diverse features, and based on the characteristics of those features, you can now choose different technologies, right? So technical stuff. PPI is an engine, right? I didn't just build on this myself, right? 2010, we revamped the project and built this PPI core, and it consists of Zend and Symfony components, right? So we took how Zend is doing things and how Symfony is doing things, where they're doing things better than each other, put something together that allows us to deliver this mechanism, okay? You can't see this at the moment. Well, actually, everybody can see it. It's pretty big. But this is here to here. This is our this is the core. This is all it is, right? So we're using Symfony. We've got a little bit here. So if you want to use this as an engine, put it in some kind of Lexi app or whatever you're doing, you're only going to get modularity, services, configuration, consoles, YAMLs, things like that. And of course, we're using PSRs, right? PSRs are the standards for logging, HTTP, these things. And if you want to use PPI as a framework, say you want to have a web page or you want to have a REST API, then you're using HTTP. So then you tell it what you want this, and it will give you this. You won't want everything by default. You just get what you need, and you can gradually add to it as you need more things, right? And then you can start getting Symfony's HTTP stuff and everything, right? So how do you include PPI in your projects? Like that, right? So that's how you get the engine. You can put it into anything. It could be a command line script, right? It could be a legacy app, it could be WordPress, it doesn't matter. But you have the skeleton application, which comes with PPI, which is, typical skeleton app has all everything nicely laid out for you to start, so you don't have to make your own app architecture. And the framework is modular by design. So even the framework inside, if you look at this framework line, not everything's inside that either. But the point I was making about you being in control is that in your application, you add the composer lines for the functionality that you need when you need it, not upfront. If you don't need templating, you're not going to get templating. If you don't need routers, you're not going to get it. Right? So it's nice and fast. And in your app, you can add things like, okay, I want to do Twig, or I want to do Twig templates. So you add this thing to your apps composer file, you have Twig functionality. Right? Or you're giving PPI the ability to do Twig for you. Right? It's up to you when you want that. And if you want routing, you can add one of these, these to your composer file. You're giving PPI the ability to do that for you. Right? And if you want to do database things, like Larry Wales got Eloquent, you've got Doctrine ORM or the Doctrine debar stuff. So you can add one line here, and the PPI will do some loading for you. Or you can load it directly if you like. But again, it's a managed solution. There's a lot of frameworks and challenging problems to be solved by you trying to use frameworks together. It will take a lot of time for folks to do that, to actually get that working. So as I already invested the time in this many years ago, before this idea of interoperability started coming around into the community. So I already had this sitting, and now everybody sees the benefits of interoperability that I seen many years ago. I'm now sourcing it, sharing it with everyone. It's very difficult to achieve interoperability. You see, if you're online and you see PSRs, right, from the PHP group, it's theoretical, right? This is a standard and you can implement this. Or these two projects can have this PSR, but it's all theory. There's no practical example of how you achieve it. So PPI is the practical side of the standards that we produced. This is what I built this before the standards existed. But once the standards emerge, I can throw away a lot of my code and just bring in the standards code, right? But it's a managed solution for you to do what you want to do, and it will achieve it using interoperability. And as the community add more standards for interoperability, this will grow. And as more projects buy into interoperability and support that, then the more things that can be in here with this little effort. So, yeah, PPI is a PSR framework, so these 6 are the standards that we're using. Right? PSR 0 and 4 are auto-loading, 1 and 2 is coding standards, and 7 is HTTP. Right? So it's not something that's custom-baked, the standards compliant already. Let's get this. Controllers, all right? It's an example of PSR 7 and controllers. Who's head of PCR7? Who's familiar with what it is? Okay. You guys, right? For it's a standard for how projects will do HTTP stuff. In a controller, it's pretty basic. You have an action, you receive a request, you do your things, and then you can return a response, right? You get a PCR7 request, so it's going to be compatible with other frameworks or other things or other code that's been written, right? And then you can return, and then this is in this example, it's using Symfony's spike component. So yeah, you can see how simple it will be for controls. Routing, all right? We don't have a routing standard yet, right? So I got one to solve the problem. So very shortly, I'm going to go to the PHP Fed group, and I'm going to lead the effort on that standard, so that we will have a routing standard, so we can have commonality between projects and how they do routing. As a result, if and when that passes, then I can throw away a lot of my code, because all these projects have been coming into standards compliant, right? But for now, it's not going to affect developers using the framework. I can just chuck away code, and it's a good day where you can chuck code away and things still work, right? So this is how I built it. I used Symfony's CMS chain router, and I put the routers inside, and I created small wrappers, which is the interface, the common interface between them. But as developers, you don't see this. You just have the native form of that router, right? We achieve this using mediation. Okay, so people sometimes say, oh, I don't want to use a different framework because I'm happy with my framework, or I don't want to learn a new framework, right? It's quite a common, it's a very reasonable answer, right? Whereas in PPI, it uses object mediation versus abstraction, okay? So it will give you have the native form of what you already know and use in your framework. You're not, say you're using Symfony technically, right? You're using Twig. You can use 100% Twig in PPI. You're using Symfony, right? But PPI is delivering Symfony to you, and then you're just returning it back to PPI and doing whatever it needs to do under the hood, right? Or in this example, routers, right? So, point is that all the knowledge and experience you already have in using these toolkits is not wasted, it should be used, right? Laravel is an example of a project. They took the Symfony router and they wrapped around it, and they have the Laravel router, right? You can't use Symfony with the Laravel, right? Because they created an abstraction. So there's a difference between abstraction and mediation, and that's why we chose not to do abstraction, because we don't want to create something new. We want to just create something that just exists, right? Because we're not looking to create yet another framework or yet another project. Installing PPI, there's like a fancy composer thing that downloads it, or you can just go to the website, press download, and you get the skeleton application. You type it up, you get a VM that just works, so you don't have to configure Apache or MySQL, well, there's no MySQL here, but you don't have to configure anything, you just type it up, and you get this skeleton app, right? With some buttons. There's also a check script, so you can just run you kind of see it. So this is all in the PPI documentation on the website, right? There's a check script. This is Symfony, right? So as an example, see you like using Aura or Laravel or Zend, right? You don't have this in those projects. You have it in Symfony. So as PPI breaks the coupling and allows you to take things from lots of different frameworks and use them together, because you're not. So this is an example where you can use Symfony, but you can like Laravel code, right? And you can make Zend code, but you're getting parts of Symfony, right? That's a good example of something called synergy, which is the ability to achieve something greater. Taking two things and putting them together to achieve something greater together that they can't achieve individually. Okay, so there's a lot of this you'll see by we'll do a quick demo, right? You'll see examples of where we can achieve synergy by putting things together, by the ability to have things together to achieve things you can't achieve natively by using one framework directly. Right, that's what I'm trying to arrive at. You know, a check script that will tell you if your system's ready, right? So the check script will be ready to go, right? As you can see, it says the cache directory is not ready. It's an example of a very common thing in game. So let's set here. This is a very this is what the skeleton app looks like, kind of. But as you can see, it's just something that I've come up with myself. It's just an example, right, of an app, of what an app looks like. We've got some config here, we've got some views, and you can see the extension of the config files, the extension of the template files are signifiers, the guys that tell you what to do. So if you just say the config guy, load this file, look at the extension and parse the YAML, parse the PHP. It goes a little bit more than that. And with regards to this, it will kick in the right templating engine as well. And anytime you just say do this template or do this config, it will just evaluate and read. It's not like one templating engine for every single thing. Use it at any point, whenever you like, any question. This is the application's config file. So this is pretty much the only config that you need to provide to PPI. And actually, you plug it to Zend, because the solution we came up with is that Zend Framework's module and service managers are extremely lightweight and extremely minimal. It's a good thing. Symphony's a lot larger and comprehensive, so you don't have something that's very simple up front. You need to give Zend just this one key, basically. Point is, this is just from the skeleton app, right? You can see what engines you've got in, and I'm adding some that sort of stuff. This is the same file, but it's in YAML format. If you look back, see got app.php, one of them is app.yaml, for example, right? This is Symfony. No, actually, our config component is Symfony, all right? So if you handle .php, you can handle YAML. But the point to take away from this is that it's not just parsing a YAML file, we're reusing the powerful parts of Symfony config. For example, info resource, and these are replacement tags, which are Symfony are parameter bags, all right? This is all the powerful things you get from Symfony. You can use it, and as far as we can engage, communicating with the Symfony team and yourselves, it's 100% compatible. So all the Symfony config that you've got, you can paste it into your modules in here, and it's going to evaluate all the Symfony features here, right? But you're able to mix it up. This is the actual front control. This is the index file. Remember I said you can use PPI as just an engine, something you can boot up. Okay, it's not necessarily a framework; it's just an engine. This is a simple. Well, actually, this is a little bit more complicated because we've got nice extra brands here. But essentially, PPI is just an app, something you boot. You load the app, you put some config in, so it knows like where the modules live, and that's it. You just do boot. You're ready. At that point, app is a container. It's a box, and whatever you put in that box can be put inside any project, right? And you can use it in the dependency injection container. That's pretty much what we do. And if you want to use this as a standalone component, like say as a standalone PPI app, you just call run or dispatch, which is an alias, and it'll load up all the controllers and start trying to do the URL parsing, right? It won't do that by default. So you see the differences between being an engine and kind of framework type like functionality. This is what a module looks like. This is an example of a module that you get in the skeleton app. All right. The point is that in the Zend framework, to get a module, PPI module extends Zend module. Okay, and to get a module in Zend framework, this is one file, module.php. Right. That's it. So module like that, you have a module. These are just extra fluff. You know, you might not need views, you might not need routes, you might not even need config, right? But there's examples of how you do that. You see here the different routes. Yeah, anyway. So this is an example of one way to do service management, right? So in Zend, right? You have classes for each factory, or you can have a callback, right? And Symfony is the same, other frameworks are the same thing. The point is that you've got all this stuff, and you've got a service called Post Manager, and Post Manager acts on post storage, right? So you've got this thing, PPI, you put it up, right? It's called boot, right? So you've got boot, you just say app, get service, Post Manager, and you've got the object in whatever context you decide to make up, right? The module class also has a get routes method. So this is the module class and it has get service config. This is get routes. And you can call one of these three functions, right? You're just returning something, all right? But the point is you do this or which Symfony routes or Barrow routes, depending on whatever circumstance you want to decide. And that get for that module, right? This is Symfony routes. Symfony guys in the house will want us to see this. This is 100% Symfony, and this is what it looks like in PPI. Okay. So the point of mediation, there's no abstraction here. It is, yeah, you see what you get, right? this is how roots, I say Laravel roots work in PPI. It's Laravel. You don't get blah, blah, blah. Syntax, right? Same thing. Yeah, loading PPI up in a legacy app. Put it, you load the config in the book, and then you return it back to like PPI.php. So if you want to like have it, you just do var equal my variable equals include PPI.php, and you just get that PPI app, and you can just start using that around in any legacy or WordPress thing. This is WordPress, for example. You've got get posts. Obviously, WordPress is kind of crappy. You know, you have to use a logo. Whatever, you know, it's WordPress, right? The scope is everywhere. The point is making is that you have PPI app that's created somewhere, and then you just do get service, and then start talking to the domain in a very, you know, decent way. But you remove this, right? You don't have to make any code in WordPress to talk to it using its database stuff. This is an example, right? Hope that makes sense. So I'm going to show you some quick things to kind of put something in perspective, and we'll see what we like for time, and we can talk, we can try things out. Yeah, see what you guys think, get some feedback, all right? So, yeah, we'll come back. There's like only like 2 more slides after this, all right? So, let me see. All right, this is the PPI skeleton app. All right, I just type Vagrant up on my machine, and I have the skeleton app running. Okay. Okay, I have a skeleton app. I pulled it down. All right, I typed Vagrant up, and I got the skeleton. I got that skeleton app. So you use App Console. All right, so you get a project, and you start. You're like, okay, well, I want to create a feature. I want to do something with this, right? So if you look at App Console, PPI's console is Symfony console, right? So all your Symfony code, if you're using consoles in Symfony, you just pop it in here. It is Symfony, so you'll get that for free. There's things like module list, all right? So this is same framework for modules, but we're using Symfony today. So you have something like this, right? You can see the loaded list of modules, right? And you can, and although we're using Zen for modules and services, in Zen framework, you can get a list of all the routes in the system and what controllers they map to, the way that Zen does, the way that Zen have designed the router. But you can in PPI because we're using Zen for the powerful parts. We're using Symfony for the powerful parts. If you want to use Symfony for a router as a router, for example. So here is a list of. Okay, so it's an example, right? So you see these are the routes in the system, and these are the controls they map to in the paths, right? So it's just a way that you can clearly see all. You may have 25 routing files. It's a very clear way to do this. This is we're using Symfony to power this, right? But the routers that are inside of these the route definitions don't necessarily have to be Symfony, right? It could be Laravel or other things, but we're using what Symfony does to give this to you, right? There's also, so one of we've got, if you look at, remember at the config slide, it had Symfony's YAML file, and it had like replacer tags, parameter bags. So you don't really know what that evaluates to, right, when you run your system. So here we have config debug. And if, so this is the config file. It's taking the config from your app and all the modules, and all they are doing, overriding each other's keys and whatever your application will do. But this is the end evaluated version of what it will actually look like. So this is the config, right? But this here was actually a definition. This was like percent caster, right? So you don't really know what it was evaluating to. So you can use this as a tool to actually see what you're evaluating to, right? Another example of this is Service Manager Debug, all right? This is for services. So there might not be a lot of services in this skeleton app already, but this is something that we've added to Zen Framework. We're using Zen Framework, but it's not, you can't do this in Zen, right? Yet, but this is something. This is a good example of synergy, right? Where we can use parts of Symfony and parts of Zend and to create something you can't really do that's not really available in Zend, right? So here you've got services and it's all fluffy, but these are the service names and these are the factories or the things they map to, right? So it's just, again, something in the framework to be used. You've got all this interoperability, you're using different parts of different technologies, and you know it's very difficult to grasp where you're at. So this is just a condensed view of everything, right? Yeah, okay, so the demo we're going to do is just going to create some modules and show you how to create different features using different technologies, all right? So we have a module create command, right? So on Twitter a few days ago, I said something like a surprise, you know, Ian was mentioning what's a surprise. So we're working on this thing for a while now, and it's a wizard. It's kind of like apt-get or composer, right? So it's like a wizard for allowing you to create modules, right? So we can create a Dundee module, right? So when you ask us where's the modules directory, it's looked at it and knows that, so we can just accept that. So now it's asking us what templating engine we want, right? So who wants to choose a templating engine? Somebody shout one out. Pick something else. That's easy. Okay, so we've got Twig. So we're creating a feature and we choose two. So we've got Twig. And then what router do we want? Anybody want to choose a router? Laravel. Okay, 3. So it's created it. All right, it's done. And we've got 3 lines of things that is informed us. It's telling us that we need to enable our module. That's fair enough. It's telling us that Twig is not enabled, as it's not an enabled templating engine, so you need to add that to the config. And Laravel router doesn't appear to be loaded, so you need to require that in Composer. Remember what I was saying about you're not going to get everything in Composer by default, but PPI will tell you when you need to add it and what you need to type. So if we do Composer require PPI's Laravel router package, again, it's a managed solution. You don't have to figure out how Laravel works and how to get it to work with your system. It just works, right? So we just give this about 10 seconds for we for the internet to kick in for Composer. Right, here it comes. All right, so we've installed Laravel router. So one of the things it says to add it to the config. I'm just going to fire up the editor here. A little bit slow to get going, but we'll get quicker. We'll create some different modules. Okay, so the first line on the output said we need to enable the module in the modules config. So that's here. And we called our module Dundee module. So that's that part taken care of, right? So the module enabled. And it also said we need to add Twig to the framework templating engines key. So down here we have framework templating engines. So enable Twig, all right? So we've done those 3 steps. We're good to go. Now, if we look at module list, you can now confirm that your module is actually active, right? And we'll try it. Okay. So each module is given a predefined route. Okay. If you look at the code, can you see this? Okay, a little bit bigger. So what's happened is we've got this new Dundee module, right? And we've got a module file, right? And then here we've got routes, load Laravel routes, because that's what you wanted, right? And there's nothing more to it than that. We've got resources, and then we've got the routes, and we've got Laravel, and this is our Laravel route, okay? And this is the actual route and the URL. So go to this, theoretically it should work. Okay, we're done. So it's used Laravel router to actually get the router, parse it, send it to her, and evaluate that, and it's using Twig as a template engine for that as well. All right. More examples. you'll get another module, right? Choose Smarty, and when I choose a different router, Symphony, right? Go with Symphony. So it's saying that we don't have Smarty yet, but it's actually it doesn't. We do have Smarty. It's saying that Smarty is in Composer, so that's fair enough. We have to just enable Smarty as a templating engine. We need to add the module, but you only have to do this once. Once the Smarty is enabled as an engine, or Twig's enabled as an engine, then fair enough. But PPI won't do it for you by default. So it's not going to try and evaluate Smarty and Twig and all that if you don't want it to, right? So it's not going to do anything unnecessarily. You've got a lot of power here, but you don't. So now Smarty will be enabled for all modules, and we got this Dundee test module, right? So if you look at the Dundee test module and look at the module, you'll see it's got get routes and it's loading Symphony routes, and it'll parse it and give it a route collection back to the system. And if you look at the routes file, you'll see we've got a Symphony route, and we chose Smarty also. So in the views file, we've got templates, and we've got a Smarty template that's extending a base, which is here. So there's a base template, Adida, get point, Dundee, resources and views, and here we chose Twig here. So we've got, again, a block for body, we extend the base, just what you're used to seeing, right? And this is the URL for Dundee test module index. I think it must have typoed or something like that. But the point is that the code's there. You can see your module, right? Yeah, the route's there, right? For whatever reason, it's a live demo. I must have done a typo or something like that. But yeah, so that's the point, right? So it's just an example of where you can build whatever you want, and this is one example of how you can do it. All right. Experimental, obviously. No live demo is perfect, but I hope you got the point. Right? So, you guys ready for you to use projects in? It's in 2.1 is what you're seeing today, and it's been in alpha for 2 years now. But the point is that it's stable, right? And we're not tagging a stable release yet, because I've been traveling to different countries this year, getting feedback from the community, getting ideas of what they want inside here, because it's a container for us to the community to put things inside that we want. Okay. Quick recap, right? It's designed PPI page review for change, it's designed for change, and I hope that what we're doing now, what we can achieve with PPI now and going forward, is you get a lot of framework wars. You know, well, my framework's better than your framework, but I don't like that framework because of X, Y, and Z. And the point is because you can't really switch, and it's painful. So I just hope that one of the end goals of the project is to just change the mentality in the community, to really change us from being like this to this with PPI in the middle. So, cheers. On a chat, we use Getter to communicate. You go to the PPI website and you press chat or something like that. It's like Slack for GitHub. It's quite awesome. The Twitter there and the docs are on the PPI website. So it's all there. Really would appreciate your feedback and see what you guys think and what creative things you guys can make you guys want. So that's it. Questions and how are we for time?
Good, yes, spot on.
Good, perfect.
Any questions? No?
Any questions on picking through on Twitter?
Not
that you can see. Any thoughts? Any feedback? Do you like the idea? Do you not like the idea? Do you think it's useful? Do you see any problems using it? Fair enough. Okay. What's that? Right, well, we can. Are we going somewhere after here?
Yeah, I was just going to say just a couple.
Right, well, we'll have a chat afterwards.
So, what is the best or the recommended way to, like, como todo? So, classes or libraries that are going to be used for different modules. Is that another module or?
It's use what another module.
This way we're going to put all the common code. So imagine you have one simple application, one module, and you have the same framework in another module, and you want to reuse classes or models and things like that.
So yeah, well, that's where services come in, right?
So and where these services live?
In your modules. In your modules. If you want them to be. If you want to share code, then you do that via services. Alright? The service can be in memory in the same application. All the modules are loaded up in the same application. They can cross-communicate. You don't have to. You can have your user sign up. You can have the same app on a different box. It'll be like signup.website.com, and it can talk to like invoice.website.com, and it can that'll just be a URL to like /service/invoice blah 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 with the service. So you can either do microservice architecture on separate machines, or which has pros and cons. You have to go over a network, or using PPI like this model, then you're in memory together, so you don't have to go over the network. You still have the same as a clean separated architecture, but you can't cross communicate. So you can talk between modules, or you can have them as a separate piece of code that you can load into the composer, and then you're not in a module, it's just code that's there. But typically you want to, in frameworks, you want to use dependency injection containers or service managers. So you want to have code that you can load up and then wrap a service around that and to expose it to the external callers, right? Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, first of all, just to say thanks again to Paul. Second thing, this is the first we've actually managed to, JetBrains have got back to us finally. We're sponsored by JetBrains and lovely ID PHP Storm, so we have a license to give away. I've just done the raffle there. You only win it if you're actually here, so if the person's not here, we're going to draw again. But the winner we have this one is Samuel.